Ethan Cross drove along the narrow, lonely road that led to the edge of town. The sky was gray, the clouds heavy, and the air smelled like rain. After hours of driving, he finally stopped in front of an old wooden house that looked half forgotten by time. The paint had faded, the porch creaked, and tall grass surrounded the yard like wild hair. Still, something about the house made him stop and stare. It wasn't beautiful, not even close, but it was cheap, and Ethan needed a fresh start. He had lost his job in the city and wanted peace. This house, standing quiet and alone, felt like a new beginning. The real estate agent had called it a fixer-upper. Ethan had laughed at that. The place looked like it needed a miracle, not a few repairs. But he didn't mind. He wanted to fix something with his own hands, to build a life again. When he got out of the car, the wooden porch groaned under his feet. He noticed something strange. Scratches on the front door, deep and uneven, as if someone had tried to claw their way in. Or out. He brushed it off, thinking maybe it was from an animal. Inside, the air was cool and smelled of dust and old wood. Every step made the floor creak and cobwebs hung in the corners. Still, there was a quiet charm to it, a feeling that this house had stories buried deep within its walls. That night, after unpacking a few boxes, Ethan made a cup of coffee and sat near the window. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees. Everything was peaceful until he heard it. A soft sound. A faint noise, almost like crying. He froze. The sound was coming from inside the house. He listened harder. It was slow, muffled, and seemed to rise from the floor beneath him. He told himself it was just the wind, but the sound came again, long, sad, and full of pain. Ethan stood up, his heartbeat quick. He took his flashlight and followed the sound across the living room. The wooden floor creaked under his weight. The sound grew louder near the center of the room, right under an old carpet. When he pulled the carpet away, he found something odd. A few of the floorboards were loose, their nails slightly bent as if someone had pried them open before. Dust covered the gaps, but there was something below. Darkness and a faint metallic smell. He hesitated, but curiosity was stronger than fear. He grabbed a hammer and carefully lifted one of the planks. Beneath it, a hole opened into darkness, a small space between the house's foundation and the floor. Cold air rushed out, and with it came a weak whisper. "Help, please." Ethan's blood ran cold. He knelt down, shining his flashlight into the hole. What he saw made his breath stop. A face. A pale face with silver eyes stared back at him from the shadows. It was a girl, or at least she looked like one. Her skin was marked with thin scars, glowing faintly blue under the light. Her hair was tangled and silver white, her lips trembling. She was sitting inside a small cage made of metal bars. Chains wrapped around her wrists and ankles. She looked weak, scared, and too thin, as if she had been there for years. Ethan stumbled back, his mind spinning. What is this?" "Who are you?" he whispered. The girl blinked slowly. Her voice was soft and broken, each word painful. "Please, don't tell them I'm here." "Who?" Ethan asked, but she shook her head. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. "They will come. They always come." Ethan didn't know what to do. His body told him to run, to call the police, to get out of this cursed house. But something in the girl's trembling voice stopped him. She wasn't dangerous, she was terrified. He leaned closer. "You're hurt. Let me help you." The girl's hand reached out through the bars. Her skin was cold, almost icy, and a faint blue light pulsed under it like veins glowing from inside. You're human," she whispered, almost in disbelief. "Not like them." "Of course I am," Ethan said, his voice shaking. "Who are you?" She hesitated. "My name is Lyra." Ethan's flashlight flickered, and for a moment the room grew darker. From outside, a low rumble of thunder echoed. The air felt heavy, thick with something unseen. Lyra looked around nervously. "They'll know soon," she whispered. "They always know when I'm found. Who will?" Ethan asked again. Before she could answer, a loud knock echoed through the house. 3 sharp bangs on the front door. Ethan froze. Lyra's eyes widened in terror. "They found me," she breathed. The knocks came again, louder this time, followed by a man's voice from outside. "Mr. Cross," it said calmly, too calmly. "We need to talk about what's under your floor." Ethan stared at the door, then at Lyra, who was trembling in fear. Outside, footsteps moved across the porch. Inside, the wind howled through the cracks, and for the first time since he bought the old house, Ethan wished he had never come here at all. The knocking grew louder. 3 sharp hits shook the front door again. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. His flashlight trembled in his hand as he looked between the door and the hole in the floor. "Mr. Cross," the calm voice said again from outside. "Open the door. It's urgent." Ethan didn't move. Every instinct told him that something was wrong. Nobody in town even knew he had moved in. He crouched down beside the hole. The silver-eyed girl, Lyra, was shaking. Her thin fingers clutched the bars of her cage. "Please," she whispered, "don't let them take me." Ethan whispered back, "Who are they?" Her voice cracked. "Men in black coats. They hurt me. They took me from the sky." Before he could ask more, the door rattled violently. "Last warning," the man shouted. Ethan's heart pounded. He had no idea what was happening, but one thing was clear. Whoever was outside wasn't here to help. He had to act fast. He ran to the front hall and grabbed an old crowbar from his tool bag. The door began to shake again under the force of heavy blows. He hurried back to the floor and pried off 2 more boards, widening the hole. Dust filled the air. "Hold on," he said. "I'm getting you out." Lyra watched him, her glowing eyes full of confusion and fear. "You would help me?" "Yes," Ethan said without thinking. "I don't know who you are, but I'm not leaving you down here." He forced the last board free and dropped down into the hidden space. It smelled like rust and something faintly metallic like old blood. The cage was small, too small for anyone to live in. The metal bars hummed faintly like they carried electricity. Ethan examined the lock. It wasn't like any lock he had seen before, smooth and silver, no keyhole, no latch. "What is this thing?" he muttered. Lyra touched the lock with her trembling hand. The metal pulsed blue, then dimmed again. "It's not from Earth," she whispered. "They made it with my own power." He didn't understand, but he didn't need to. He swung the crowbar down hard against the lock. Sparks flew. The metal cracked and a sharp blue flash lit the chamber. Lyra cried out and covered her face. Outside, the knocking stopped. The sudden silence made Ethan's skin crawl. He hit the lock again. Once, twice, and finally it snapped open with a sharp click. The cage door swung free. Lyra stumbled out and nearly fell, her legs too weak to hold her. Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her skin felt cool, almost weightless, and faint blue light shimmered beneath it like veins of light. "You're safe now," he said softly. Lyra looked up at him. "No one is safe when they come." Before he could ask what she meant, the front door burst open upstairs with a crash. Boots stomped against the old floorboards. Flashlights moved through the shadows. "Search the house," a deep voice ordered. Ethan's pulse raced. He helped Lyra crawl toward the far wall of the basement chamber. There was a small, broken vent near the ground, half covered with dirt. He started digging it open with his hands. Lyra pressed her ear to the ceiling. "4 men," she whispered. "One stays by the door." Ethan froze. "How do you know that?" "I can feel their fear," she said softly. "They're scared of me." The vent came loose, revealing a narrow tunnel. It looked like it led under the yard. "This way," Ethan whispered. Lyra hesitated. "If you go with me, they will hunt you too." Ethan smiled faintly, even though his hands were shaking. "Guess I already made that choice." They crawled into the tunnel, the sound of boots echoing above them. The air was thick with dirt and the smell of metal. Lyra's faint glow lit the path ahead like a soft blue lantern. Behind them, someone shouted, "The floorboards! She's gone!" A burst of gunfire followed, the sound echoing through the old house. Dust rained down from the ceiling as they crawled faster. After what felt like forever, the tunnel opened behind an old shed near the woods. Ethan pushed open the rotten door and cool night air rushed in. He helped Lyra out and they stumbled into the darkness. They ran through tall grass until the house was just a shadow behind them. The moonlight reflected off Lyra's silver hair and she looked almost ghostly. Finally, they stopped to catch their breath near the edge of the forest. Ethan turned to her. "Who are you really, Lyra? What did they do to you?" She looked down at her scarred hands. "I came from the stars," she said quietly. "My people came in peace, but humans captured us. They took our power, our blood, and made weapons." Ethan couldn't believe what he was hearing. "You're saying the government did this?" Lyra nodded weakly. "They called us subjects. I was the last one left." A low hum echoed through the sky, something mechanical. Lyra looked up. A drone's red light moved between the clouds. Her eyes widened. "They found us again." Ethan clenched his jaw. "Then we keep running." They disappeared into the dark forest as the drone hovered above the field. its light scanning the grass where they had just been. Behind them, the old house stood silent once more. But deep under its broken floor, the cage still glowed. Faintly blue, its shattered lock pulsing like a dying heartbeat. The forest was dark and endless, filled with the sound of wind and cracking branches. Ethan's lungs burned as he ran, holding Lyra's hand tightly. Her steps were weak, but she didn't stop. Behind them, the hum of drones and the shouts of men echoed through the trees. "Faster," Ethan whispered, looking over his shoulder. Flashlights cut through the darkness like thin blades of light. "They're close!" Lyra's breathing was shallow. The blue glow in her skin had dimmed, flickering like a dying flame. I can't hold it," she said softly. "You're doing fine," Ethan said, pulling her forward. Just a little farther. They broke through a patch of bushes and stumbled into a clearing. The moonlight revealed an old riverbed, dry and cracked. Ethan looked around quickly. "We can hide there." They climbed down into the hollow ground and crouched behind a wall of rocks. Ethan tried to listen. The forest had gone silent except for their ragged breathing. After a moment, Lyra touched the dirt and closed her eyes. The blue veins under her skin shimmered faintly. "They're spreading out," she whispered. "3 to the north, 2 coming this way." Ethan stared. "You can sense them?" Lyra nodded weakly. "Their fear, their anger. I feel it in the air." He didn't know how she did it, but there was no time to question. He looked around again, desperate for a plan. "We can't keep running all night. We need somewhere to hide, somewhere they won't search." Lyra looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. "There is an old building nearby. I remember it. They used to keep me there before moving me to the house." Ethan frowned. "You mean they brought you here before?" She nodded, tears forming in her silver eyes. "They called it Site 9, a place for broken things." Ethan took her hand again. "Then let's go back to it. If they used to keep you there, maybe they won't expect us to return." They moved quietly through the forest, following the faint hum of distant machines. After nearly an hour of walking, they reached the edge of the woods and saw a shape in the distance. A massive, rusted building half buried under vines and rubble. It looked like an old factory, long abandoned. Broken windows, bent metal doors, and a torn sign that read, "Eastridge Steelworks." Inside, the air was cold and smelled of iron. The moonlight filtered through the broken roof, shining on rusted machines and empty halls. It felt haunted, but to Ethan it also felt safe for now. They found a small room near the back, hidden behind fallen shelves. Ethan helped Lyra sit down against the wall. Her body trembled as she pulled her knees close. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her. "You're freezing." "I'm not used to this world anymore," she whispered. "It hurts to breathe your air." Ethan sat beside her. "You said they took you from the sky. How did you get here? What really happened?" Lyra stared at the floor. "My people came in peace long ago. We wanted to share knowledge to help your kind grow. But your leaders saw power instead of friendship. They killed my crew, took our ship, and trapped me. They studied me like an animal." Her voice trembled, and for a moment she looked like a scared child rather than something from another world. Ethan's fists clenched. "They can't get away with that." Lyra turned to him. "You're different from them. You feel pain for others. That's why I trust you." Before Ethan could answer, a loud metallic thud echoed across the factory. The sound came again, closer this time. He stood up quickly and peeked through a crack in the wall. Outside, red laser dots swept across the floor. A drone floated in slowly, its camera turning. "They found us," Ethan whispered. Lyra tried to stand but staggered. "I can stop it," she said, her eyes glowing faintly blue. "Don't," Ethan started, but it was too late. Lyra raised her hand. A wave of soft blue energy pulsed from her body, and the drone froze midair. Its lights flickered and died before crashing to the floor with a metallic thud. Ethan stared in disbelief. "You can control machines?" Lyra's voice was weak. "For now. But it costs me." Outside, more shouts echoed. "Drone down! She's inside!" Ethan grabbed her hand. "We have to move." They ran deeper into the building, their footsteps echoing on the concrete floor. The walls shook as flashbangs exploded outside. They reached a side door that led to a lower tunnel. The air smelled like oil and rust. Ethan forced the heavy door open and they slipped inside. The tunnel was dark, with pipes running along the ceiling and dripping water echoing down the hall. Lyra leaned against him, her skin burning cold. "Ethan," she whispered, her voice fading. If they catch me again, they'll use me to make weapons. Promise me you won't let them." Ethan looked at her, this fragile being who had suffered so much, and nodded. "I promise." From behind, flashlights swept into the tunnel. The men were close now. Ethan pulled Lyra forward, his voice steady. "We'll make it out, Lyra, I swear." Ahead, the tunnel curved toward faint moonlight leaking through a broken grate. They could hear the wind outside. Freedom was close. But as they neared the exit, a red laser sight appeared on the wall beside them. Then another. Ethan shielded Lyra as bullets tore into the pipes above. Steam hissed out, filling the tunnel with smoke. Lyra's eyes flared bright blue, and the tunnel shook as a wave of invisible force erupted outward. The soldiers were thrown back like rag dolls. When the smoke cleared, Ethan and Lyra were gone, vanished into the night beyond the grate. The last soldier, coughing and dazed, whispered into his radio, "Subject is loose, and she's not alone." The night swallowed them whole as Ethan and Lyra moved deeper into the forest. The air was cold and damp, and every shadow felt alive. Branches scratched at Ethan's jacket as he guided Lyra through the dark. Her glow had faded now, leaving only the faint shimmer of her silver eyes to guide them. Behind them, far away but getting closer, came the low hum of engines and the buzz of search drones. The hunt had begun. "They won't stop," Lyra said softly. "They'll keep coming until I'm dead." Ethan turned to her, his face set with determination. "Then we make sure they don't find you." They followed a narrow path that led to an old service road. The cracked asphalt was covered in weeds, but a rusted sign told Ethan they were near the edge of town. "If we can get to the hills," he said, "they won't track us easily." Lyra nodded, her steps shaky. "I can hide our energy for a while, but it will hurt." He stopped. "No, don't hurt yourself for me." She gave a small smile. "You don't understand. I was made to protect life, not destroy it. If pain keeps you safe, I will bear it." Before Ethan could reply, a sharp sound cut through the night, a mechanical whir, followed by the flash of red light sweeping over the trees. "A drone, down!" Ethan whispered, pulling Lyra into the bushes. The drone floated overhead, scanning the ground. Its red beam passed inches from them, humming quietly as it searched. Lyra closed her eyes. The air around them shimmered faintly, and suddenly the drone's light flickered and moved away as if it couldn't see them. Ethan whispered, "What did you do?" "Bent its sight," she said weakly. "It can't sense us for a moment." When the drone disappeared over the trees, Ethan helped her up. "Come on. There's an old factory nearby. We'll rest there." They reached the ruins just before dawn. The building was large, silent, and broken. Rust covered the walls, and wild vines crawled up to the shattered windows. Ethan found a small storage room and helped Lyra lie down on a blanket he pulled from an old crate. She looked pale, her skin glowing faintly blue under the first light of morning. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said quietly. Lyra smiled faintly. "You worry too much for someone you just met." He shook his head. "I'm not sure what's happening, Lyra, but no one deserves to be hunted like this." For a moment, the silence between them felt heavy. Then Lyra spoke softly. "Ethan, have you ever wondered why humans fear what they don't understand?" He looked down. "All the time. My people once loved humans," she continued. "You were brave, curious, full of light. But something changed. The ones who found us, your leaders, they saw power, not peace. They broke their promise and used us to make weapons." Ethan clenched his fists. "So they tortured you for technology?" Lyra nodded. "They wanted the light inside us, the energy that binds life together. They called it the Source. I was a child when they captured me." Ethan's chest tightened. "You were just a kid." She smiled weakly. "Not a child by your years, but by spirit. I learned pain long before I learned kindness again." A soft wind moved through the broken window, carrying the faint hum of engines again. Ethan stood and peeked through a gap in the wall. Several dark vans were parked along the road, men in black armor sweeping the forest with scanners. "They're closing in," he whispered. Lyra slowly stood, her strength returning little by little. "They want to bring me back to their lab. If they take me alive, they'll finish what they started." Ethan looked at her and then at the factory door. "Then we fight." Lyra blinked in surprise. "Fight? You can't fight them, Ethan. They have weapons." "You have only courage." He smiled grimly. "Sometimes courage is enough." She looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. "If we must fight, then I'll help." They moved through the shadows, setting old metal barrels and broken furniture as cover. Ethan found a rusted fire axe and gripped it tight. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes glowing brighter now, her energy flickering like lightning under her skin. Outside, the men spread out, scanning the area. A voice crackled over a radio. "Target inside the building. Move in." Ethan crouched behind a pillar as the first soldier entered. His flashlight swept across the dusty floor. Lyra whispered, "Stay low." When the soldier passed, she raised her hand. A pulse of blue light rippled through the air and the man froze mid-step, his armor sparking before he fell silently to the ground. Ethan stared. "You didn't kill him?" "No," Lyra said quietly. "I only silenced his hate," but the sound of his fall alerted the others. More footsteps thundered in. Red laser sights danced across the walls. "Run!" Ethan shouted. They dashed through the factory, bullets striking the metal around them. Lyra turned suddenly, her hands glowing bright, and unleashed a wave of light that bent the bullets mid-air, scattering them away. The shockwave knocked the soldiers off their feet. The roof cracked and dust fell like rain. "We can't stay here," Ethan yelled. Lyra grabbed his hand. The back door through the service tunnel. They sprinted into the tunnel just as explosions rocked the building behind them, the air filled with smoke and fire. As they escaped into the open hills beyond, Ethan looked back at the burning factory. Lyra turned her gaze upward, her silver eyes reflecting the flames. "They'll keep coming," she whispered. "But I won't hide forever." Ethan nodded. "Then we'll make them regret ever coming after you." Behind them, in the glow of the fire, a black figure stepped from the smoke, Director Haynes, his cold eyes fixed on the direction they had fled. He spoke into his radio, voice calm and deadly. "Begin full hunt protocol. The alien isn't alone anymore, and this time the human dies too." Morning came cold and gray. Mist covered the forest like a soft blanket, hiding the scars of the night before. Ethan and Lyra rested in a small cave near the hillside, far from the burning factory. The sound of distant helicopters echoed across the valley. Ethan sat by the cave's entrance, staring out into the fog. His clothes were torn, his hands scraped, but his mind wouldn't rest. He had helped a creature not from this world, and now the world wanted them both dead. Behind him, Lyra slept, her silver hair glowing faintly in the dim light. Her body looked fragile, but Ethan had seen what she could do, power enough to stop bullets and shatter steel. Yet she wasn't a monster. She was scared, lonely, and kind. He turned as she stirred. "You should rest," he said softly. Lyra opened her eyes. The glow in them was weaker than before. "I can't," she whispered. "They're moving closer," Ethan frowned. "How do you know?" "I feel them," she said. "Their anger spreads through the air like fire. The one who leads them, he burns brighter than the rest." Ethan guessed who she meant. Director Haynes, the man from the house. The voice that had calmly called his name before breaking down the door. Lyra sat up slowly. "Ethan, you should leave me." "Go back. Say you found nothing. If they catch you with me, they will kill you." He shook his head. "I'm not leaving you. You deserve to live, not rot in some cage again." She looked at him for a long time. "You are strange for a human," she said softly. "Most would have sold me already." Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, well, I never liked most people." They shared a quiet moment, but it didn't last. A low rumble shook the ground. A dark shadow moved through the mist. A massive armored vehicle crawling through the forest road below. Drones buzzed above it like metal insects. Lyra stood, her expression tense. "They found us." Ethan looked down at the narrow valley below. "We can't fight that. We need to move." They ran through the woods, dodging branches and roots, but soon the sound of engines grew louder. A spotlight cut through the fog, sweeping across the trees. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand. "This way." They reached an old bridge that hung over a deep ravine. Half of it had collapsed, the rest trembling under the wind. Ethan hesitated, then stepped forward. "We can cross," Lyra shook her head. "It won't hold us both." "We don't have time to argue," Ethan said, pulling her along. Halfway across, a sharp sound broke the air. A drone fired a stun blast. The beam struck the wooden planks behind them, and the bridge began to crumble. Ethan pushed Lyra forward. "Go, jump!" She leaped to the other side, landing on her knees. Ethan followed, barely grabbing the edge before the rest of the bridge snapped and fell into the ravine below. Lyra pulled him up with surprising strength. But before they could move again, a group of soldiers stepped out of the mist ahead, rifles raised. "Freeze!" one shouted. Ethan stood in front of Lyra, holding his axe tightly. "Stay back!" The soldiers didn't listen. They surrounded them in seconds. Then a slow, steady voice came from behind the group. "Mr. Cross," said Director Haynes, stepping forward. His dark coat brushed against the fog like a shadow. "You've caused quite the mess," Ethan glared. "Let her go," Haynes smiled coldly. "That's not how this works. You have no idea what she is, do you? She's alive. That's all I need to know." Haynes nodded slightly as if amused. "Alive? No, she's a weapon. And right now she's waking up." Ethan frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra suddenly gasped and stumbled back. Her eyes flashed bright blue, brighter than ever before. The ground under her feet began to vibrate. "Ethan," she whispered, "I can't stop it. Something inside me is breaking." Blue light spread from her body, crawling across the ground like veins of fire. The soldiers stepped back in fear. Their equipment began to spark, their rifles jamming. Haynes didn't move. "Ah," he said softly. "The source is reacting." Lyra's scream echoed through the forest. Her hair floated upward, her scars glowing like burning symbols. The light pulsed once, then twice, and the forest exploded with energy. Ethan was thrown back against a rock. The air shimmered like heat. The soldiers screamed as their weapons melted. The drones fell from the sky, crashing into the dirt. Through the chaos, a deep, echoing voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. It was not Lyra's voice. It was older, stronger, endless. "You broke the treaty. You enslaved the light." Haynes stared in awe. Impossible. The Ancient One was destroyed. The voice roared through Lyra's mouth, shaking the trees. "You cannot destroy what watches all worlds." Ethan crawled forward, shouting, "Lyra! Fight it! Don't let it control you." For a moment, the blue light flickered, and her trembling eyes focused on him. "Ethan, run!" He refused. "Not without you." The ground split beneath them, glowing with cracks of blue fire. Haynes shouted orders, but his men were already fleeing. The forest turned into a storm of light and wind. Then, just as suddenly as it began, everything went silent. The glow faded. The mist settled. Ethan blinked through the smoke. Lyra lay motionless on the ground, her skin cold but her chest still rising faintly. Haynes was gone, his vehicle overturned and burning in the distance. Ethan knelt beside Lyra, whispering, "You're okay. You're okay?" Her faint voice trembled. "No, Ethan, something has awakened." "And it's not done yet." Her silver eyes flickered once more, and far above, the clouds split open with a deep blue light, as if something ancient had just opened its eyes. The forest was quiet again, but the silence felt wrong, too heavy, too still. Smoke drifted through the trees from the burning wreckage down the hill. Ethan sat on the cold ground, holding Lyra's head in his lap. Her skin no longer glowed. Her silver eyes were dull, half-closed. "Stay with me," he whispered. "Please." Her voice was faint, almost a breath. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone." Ethan shook his head. "You didn't. You saved us." She looked up at him weakly. "No, I lost control." The old one inside me woke up. "The source is awake now. It remembers everything." He frowned. "The old one?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Every child of the light carries a piece of the source inside. It's what gives us our power. But mine was sealed long ago when your people betrayed us. Now it's free." Ethan didn't understand all of it, but the fear in her voice made his stomach twist. "Can you stop it?" She shook her head. "No, but maybe I can show you." Before he could ask what she meant, she reached up and touched his forehead. The world vanished. Ethan gasped as his vision filled with light. Suddenly he stood in a vast white space filled with stars. Shapes of light floated around him. People, but not quite human. They were tall, graceful, glowing with calm energy. And then behind them he saw Earth, blue and full of life. A voice echoed all around, soft and ancient. "Long ago we came to your world with open hands. We offered the source, the power to heal, to grow, to light your skies. But your leaders took our gift and turned it into war." The vision changed. He saw soldiers firing weapons that glowed with blue energy. Cities burning, screaming. The sky full of ships that were not from Earth, and human jets chasing them down. Lyra's voice whispered beside him. "They called us invaders. They called us monsters, but it was they who struck first." Ethan turned. He saw Lyra in the vision, younger, standing beside others like her. They were chained inside glass cells surrounded by human scientists. One of the scientists looked familiar, older, colder.
Director Haynes.
He was there, Ethan said. Even then, Lyra nodded. He found the wreck of our ship. He studied us, drained the source from our bodies to build his weapons. Every time one of us died, he called it progress. The light flickered again. He saw young Lyra escape her cell only to be caught again. He saw her scream as they placed the glowing collar on her neck, the same one that had left scars around her throat. He said I was too dangerous to live, Lyra said quietly. But he couldn't kill me. The source would not allow it, so they buried me under that house in silence and waited for me to fade. Ethan clenched his fists. And I found you, Lyra smiled faintly. The source led you to me. Humans still have light in their hearts, even after all the dark they made. The vision began to fade, and Ethan felt the ground return beneath him. He blinked and the forest came back. Lyra lay weak in his arms again, her hand still on his cheek. Ethan, she said softly. The source will destroy this world if it sees only hate. But maybe it can be healed, he looked at her. How? There is a place beneath the mountain, she whispered, where the source first touched your world. If I reach it, I can stop what's coming. Ethan nodded. Then we go there. She smiled sadly. You can't come. The way is dangerous. I feel your fear already. He grinned, tired but stubborn. Fear means I care. You're stuck with me. Lyra stared at him for a moment, then laughed weakly, the first real laugh he had ever heard from her. Humans are strange, she said. You break everything, but you still find beauty in the pieces. Before they could move, a sharp mechanical whine cut through the air. A black drone hovered above the trees, its camera locking onto them. Lyra tensed. They're tracking the source now, not me. It's too late to hide. Ethan stood, his mind racing. Then we stopped running. He picked up the fallen rifle from one of the soldiers and aimed at the drone. One clean shot. The machine sparked and fell into the dirt. Lyra smiled. You're learning fast. Ethan helped her stand. Which way to the mountain? She pointed east toward the rising sun. Beyond those hills. We must hurry before they seal the gate. They began walking through the trees. The world around them felt heavier, the air buzzing faintly with unseen power. Behind them, far away, a dark helicopter rose into the air. Director Haynes sat inside, his expression grim as he watched their heat signatures on the screen. The source is fully active, said a soldier beside him. Haynes nodded. Good, if she reaches the mountain, she'll end the world. Bring in the strike team. If the alien fails to control it, we'll burn everything, human or not. By nightfall, Ethan and Lyra reached the edge of a wide valley. In the distance, the mountain loomed, its peak hidden in clouds, glowing faintly blue from within. Lyra's voice was soft but firm. That's where it began, and that's where it must end. Ethan looked at her, his eyes steady. Then let's finish this. As they walked toward the mountain, thunder rolled through the clouds, not from a storm, but from something waking inside the earth. The mountain stood tall against the storming sky, its peak glowing with blue fire that twisted through the clouds. The air buzzed like electricity, humming with the power of the awakened source. Ethan and Lyra stood at its base, both exhausted, both changed. The climb ahead looked impossible. The rocks glowed faintly, pulsing with strange veins of light. Each pulse made the earth tremble, as if the mountain was alive and breathing. Ethan adjusted the strap of the rifle he carried and glanced at Lyra. She was weak, but her eyes shone brighter than ever. We're almost there, he said. Lyra nodded slowly. At the top lies the core, the heart of the source. It's calling me home. She took a step forward, but her knees buckled. Ethan caught her quickly. Easy, I've got you, she smiled faintly. You always do. They started the climb together. The wind howled, pushing against them like invisible hands. Lightning struck across the sky, glowing the same eerie blue. As they moved higher, Ethan could see shapes flickering in the storm. Shadows of the Lightborn, Lyra's kind, whispering in the air like memories. Each step felt heavier than the last. The closer they got, the louder the hum became, deep, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. At last, they reached a wide plateau. In the center stood a circular stone structure glowing with swirling symbols. Blue energy flowed out of it like rivers of light reaching into the clouds. This is it, Lyra said softly. The source core. Ethan stared at the pulsing energy. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. So what do we do now? Lyra stepped forward. I must return what was taken. If I give back my part of the source, it will sleep again. But, she hesitated, Ethan's voice dropped. But what? It will take me with it, he froze. No, there has to be another way. There isn't, she said gently. The source is not just power, it's life itself. When I was captured, they tore a piece of it from this world and caged it inside me. If I don't return it, the earth will burn. If I do, I fade. Ethan stepped closer, shaking his head. You're not fading. Not after everything we've been through. Lyra reached out and touched his cheek. You showed me something I thought your kind had lost. Kindness without reason. That is what makes humans strong, Ethan. Not power, not weapons, heart. Before he could speak, a sharp blast echoed behind them. The ground shook. A gunship appeared from the clouds, its engines roaring. Director Haynes stood at the open ramp, his black coat whipping in the wind. You should have listened, Cross, he shouted through a loudspeaker. Step away from the alien or I'll erase you both. Ethan pulled Lyra behind one of the rocks. Of course he'd show up now, he muttered. Lyra's eyes narrowed. He wants the source for himself. He'll never stop. The gunship fired, sending blue plasma bolts crashing into the ground. Explosions shook the plateau. Ethan fired back with the rifle, but it was useless against the armored beast above. Haynes's voice thundered. This world belongs to humanity. You're a mistake, Lyra, Ethan shouted over the wind. You call this humanity? Hunting, killing, stealing power from the innocent? He dropped the empty rifle and stood tall, glaring up at the hovering ship. You don't speak for us. Real humans don't build cages, they break them. For a moment the gunship hesitated. Even the storm seemed to pause. Then Haynes snarled, So be it. He fired the main cannon. Ethan grabbed Lyra, pulling her close. The blast hit the ground behind them, throwing them forward. The shockwave knocked Ethan off his feet. He rolled across the ground, pain burning through his arms. Lyra crawled toward the core, her light growing brighter with every step. Ethan, she whispered, you have to let me go. He reached for her hand, his eyes desperate. No, there's another way. She smiled sadly. There's only one way. Then she rose to her feet, light pouring from her body like a sunrise. Her hair lifted, her scars glowing white. The storm stopped. Even the gunship froze in midair. Haynes covered his face, shouting, No! Stop her! But it was too late. Lyra stepped into the core. The moment her feet touched the glowing surface, the world erupted in blinding blue light. Ethan shielded his eyes as the energy roared across the mountain. The gunship was ripped apart in seconds, vanishing into the storm. The ground cracked open, light pouring through every crevice. Then, just as suddenly, everything went still. Ethan opened his eyes. The sky was clear. The storm was gone. The mountain no longer glowed. Only a gentle blue mist floated where the core had been. Lyra was gone. He fell to his knees, breathing hard. Lyra, he whispered. Something shimmered in the air beside him. A small sphere of light hovered before his face. It pulsed once, softly, and he heard her voice, calm, gentle, and full of peace. Thank you, Ethan. You reminded me why humans were chosen to share the stars. Remember, the light isn't in the sky, it's in you. The light rose higher, then drifted toward the clouds and disappeared. Ethan sat there for a long time, staring at the empty sky. The world was silent again, but somehow it felt alive. The trees below swayed softly, and the earth glowed with faint blue veins, healed and calm. He stood slowly, looking toward the sunrise. For the first time in years, the light felt warm, not harsh. Goodbye, Lyra, he said quietly. You saved us all. And as the wind carried his words away, a faint star blinked blue in the morning sky, like an eye opening far beyond the clouds, watching over him.